high pressure gauge, big number scale. On the red markings is the PSI, and so that will tell you the level inside the tank. A brand new tank, typically between 1500 to 2000 PSI, depending on how generous they were. They kind of really screwed you with this one, because this one's down to about 750 or 700 PSI. But that happens. So the other one is definitely full. That one's at about 1500 PSI. Okay. So this will tell you the level inside the tank. When it's at 0, there's going to be no more pressure to operate the machine, and the machine will stop working. So you can keep an eye on what it is. You don't have to change it when it starts hitting the red markings. The red zone starts at 750 PSI, and that's still about a third of a tank. Okay, and depending on your usage, this tank, when full, not like that, but when it's full, it will typically power the machine for 3-4 months. You know, you can get more, so it depends on how busy you are. And if you put high-end wines in here, they move more slowly. If you put your house wines that, you know, use several bottles a day, you can maybe finish it in 2 months. But typically 3 or 4 months is you should safely expect out of this tank, okay, when it's full. So that means that when it reaches the red zone, it's still about a third of a tank. Should have at least a month left over in this, okay? So keep that in mind. If you want to change it early, you can change it when it reaches the very, very last notch above 0, which is 100 PSI. Since the machine needs 60 PSI to run, when it's down to 100, the tank is, you know, pretty much on its last leg, okay? So you can change it then. The way you change out a tank, first you want to close the tank, completely closed. Okay? If there's still some pressure in the line, I recommend to bleed it off by pulling this ring. If you don't, it will just make it harder to undo the tank off the regulator. Okay? And then you're going to use a wrench. Please make sure you use a wrench and not pliers. Okay? Some people try to use pliers and they don't get a good grip, and it starts to round off this connector. So I don't recommend it. So use a wrench so you can get a good grip. Untighten, and once it's untightened like that, it's actually pretty easy to undo by hand. Just hold on to the regulator. Don't let it flop on the ground when it's free from the tank. The regulator is pretty fragile, especially the gauges. So if they get struck, if the tank falls over, or this thing lands on the ground or hits the wall, it's very easy to damage these things, and then they're going to start leaking gas. Okay, and then you have to replace it. Okay, so 99% of the time when there's leaks, it's usually at the regulator. Okay. And then when you're going to put this on the new tank, tighten as hard as you can by hand. Okay, as hard as you can by hand, and you can see still pretty loose. So you're going to use a wrench and very little, 1/8 of a turn. That's all you need. Not a lot of strength.